sorry, our computer decided to not love us anymore.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Gary's still here.
Yeah.
We didn't lose him.
Still here.
So yeah, did you want to?
Oh yeah, so
I forgot what we were
yeah,
talking about, so we're gonna use
yeah,
that as a segue.
we'll just segue right into the next
My
question.
golf swing, really.
Yeah.
Oh right. That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Right.
So you said you were under 3 or
Yeah, I
over
was
3?
3
I
under
forget.
par yesterday. Sweet day on the greens.
I've actually never played golf.
Golf is hard, man. Golf is like absurdly
Yeah.
kind of hard. Understand how they made that game so hard. And my uncle's like really into golf, and I'm from Florida, so of course there's golf courses everywhere.
True.
Yeah, I had a new respect for golfers after that day. I was like, yeah, no, this is crazy.
Florida is golf courses and swamps, right?
Yep, golf
That's
courses
all
and
it is.
swamps. That's all we got. Not much to do. And then when you turn 21, you go to the club, and then that gets boring.
Right.
Then you really just don't have anything to do. Anyway, so next question is, how do you deal with writer's block?
Well, it does happen. Deadlines are helpful. I mean, because the thing is when you're struggling is you have to start writing something, because it is once you start writing something, once you get something down, it starts to initiate the creative process in your brain. It is focus. It is consistent and absolute focus of your energy. Things almost always come if you focus enough. So it's critical that you not allow yourself to be distracted, that you just really keep working and writing music. I had a teacher once, Bernardo Segal, who actually taught me piano, but he was also a television and film composer. And he used to score a television series called Columbo.
Oh,
Yeah.
one more thing. Yeah.
And I used to go to those. The first sessions I ever went to were his Columbo sessions.
That's awesome.
And so he used to talk about film music, in between Debussy and Chopin, and he would say, he would just say, just start. He would like start repeating one note on the piano. He says, start with that, and just start. It'll suggest the next thing. Just start writing something, get something down. And that does work. And that said, there are times when you just have like a really bad day and you don't get much written.
Right.
But you can't afford it to some extent. I mean, you have to, especially with film or television, it's relentless in its demand of cranking out stuff. The more you do, you just get better at it, and I guess worst case, you don't get your best work done that day, but you get something that works.
Yeah.
But it is critical to just keep pushing yourself through those periods, or take a break, take a walk, go out to go see a movie, do something. Sometimes you just have to get away from it.
Right. It is tough because, when you're in this industry, it's like writer's block can sometimes mean you don't get paid, which is not an option sometimes, which is just more pressure.
Deliver. If you don't deliver, I mean, we deliver, I mean.
Yeah, that's the job.
So really critical, important to otherwise you're going to get fired if you're not turning in music. You've got to do that. You have to, so it's if you are a person who suffers tremendously from writer's block, then you have to find a way to overcome it, or maybe find, start selling shoes or something.
Right. Yeah, get a day job. The one question we did have from the chat was, do you prefer to work with people that are local to you, or have people have people been flown out to you to work on certain things, or do you have people that you generally handpick from?
You mean players? Are they talking about players?
Yeah, players or other composers.
Because I don't have ghosts. I write my own music.
Yeah.
I worked with a recording engineer recently, and he's worked with a lot of film composers and game composers. He says the difference between game composers and film composers is that game composers write their own music, and it's true. I mean, I write my own music, so I'm not really hiring third parties to other composers to write for me. I had one game that I did last year. When when was that? No, actually, it was earlier this year, and I had one of my students do it.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the themes and I oversaw all their work, and I told the people I was working with, I'm busy, I don't have that much time, but I'll write the theme and I'll oversee it, and they didn't have a big budget either, so that was fine.
It's not
So
helpful.
so I did. So in terms of working with players, I certainly have worked with people all over the world. I like to record in LA, but very often you can't do that because you are unable to use the AFM, musicians, because of issues with secondary market,
Right.
secondary, costs that the game developers want to buy out, and so you can't get that so much with AFM. Although there's something very close to a buyout right now that's available. So, well, the AFM has promulgated an agreement now, which essentially the only thing you can't do with the music, you essentially own it. You can put it in sequels. You can even use a few minutes of it in anything. But the only thing you can't do is put it into a library or put it into another film or into a film or something. But you can do everything else with that music without any additional payments. So it's pretty close to a buyout. And people go to London a lot, but London's not a buyout. London has restrictions. You can't put the music into a library. You can't even put it into sequels. So you actually have the benefit when you do A for them. But if you want a complete 100% buyout, then you have to go to like Nashville or Seattle if you want to work in the U.S. or you can go to Eastern Europe. And I recorded in Vienna this past summer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. They have a studio there called Synchron. It is owned by the library that makes Vienna, the Vienna Orchestral Library, and it's a beautiful studio. It's like awesome. It's like a major sound recording stage. It's huge.
Right.
And the players were good. The string players were especially good. And so I went there and I conducted. And sometimes you work remotely where you have the orchestra in a remote location in a studio, and you're talking to them like we're talking right now. You're like talking to the engineer or talking to the conductor and asking them, and you're monitoring what they're doing. It's not as much fun as going to the session and being there. But it's a way for because it's much cheaper to record in Eastern Europe. But the quality of the performances are not as good as LA or London, which are my favorite places to record.
I've our old boss Dan is really familiar with all the LA players that some of the guys he knows were working on the same orchestra that did the Simpsons theme song for however many years and stuff like that. So he always tells us of like the legendary talent that exists out there in LA, and I believe it because he's really into music too, and he's actually the one that kind of introduced at least me to 12-tone serialism.
Yeah.
The first time I heard it, I was just like, what is this? And then he started explaining it, and I was like, this is kind of cool, but what is this?
I still don't get it.
Yeah, right? So, we hear a lot about that kind of stuff, and it's just like, yeah, there's lots of people that, just live, eat, breathe, sleep. They're can pick up a piece of sheet music and bang out a part in like 10 minutes and you gotta pay them astronomical fees for it, which they deserve, I guess, but
No, they totally do. It's just like at some point it's like, how much of your life do you dedicate to playing the snare drum?
Yeah, right.
Which is like, that's up to you. Like, I don't have that kind of willpower.
How good do you want to get at the snare drum and just?
Well, someone who played the snare drum would be a percussionist, so they would play the whole panoply of percussion and non-orchestral percussion. So that would just be one instrument they would play. But yeah, I mean, there's a fantastic bench of really marvelous musicians here in Los Angeles who come into a studio. We have these great studios, these big scoring stages like Warner Brothers, Sony, Fox, and then we have the smaller studios as well. Where you can really and you have these fantastic. And I grew up. That's how I kind of grew up in that environment. I did grow up in that environment where I just, I was going to a recording studio once or twice a week and recording. That was just the business, It would be like, if you're in the clothing manufacturing business, you're going to places where they manufacture
Of
clothing.
course, yeah.
This place where we manufacture music, and then you see something on the wall that said Frank Sinatra recorded here. It's kind of cool. Like we're going to Capitol or East West has a studio on Sunset Boulevard.
Nice.
They call it East West, but it used to be called Cello. It had different names, and Frank Sinatra owned it, and he recorded many of his famous hit songs.
See, so I'm feeling like a fool because I know like the East West orchestral
From Native Instruments
that come with the compact and stuff like that. I always thought that was just the company. It's just like, we call ourselves East West, but it's a studio.
Well, no, East West is a company that makes library, and they purchased that studio, so they called it East West. So that you actually had that active, but they also own a studio, and they do their sample recording in that studio.
Okay.
But they also you can also record there. And it's like there's one big studio in the center, and then there's all these little satellite studios around the central studio inside this building, and a lot of rock and roll bands are rent space in the smaller space studios. It's an interesting complex of studios, really.
Yeah, that seems like something really interesting to go see one day.
Yeah,
it is. It has a lot of history, as I said. Frank Sinatra and many other.
right.
So yeah, let's get a little bit of a silly question in here real quick. Could you ever see yourself living underwater?
What?
Thanks, Adam.
What? I didn't even see that one. What?
Or like, I guess, how would you feel about living underwater?
I was a kid. There was a movie called The Incredible Mr. Limpet, and he became a fish. I did imagine myself becoming a fish and how cool that would be. And later, when I discovered that it's a pretty dangerous environment and there's sharks, that I don't think I would want to live in the ocean.
Yeah, the ocean is definitely scary.
But would I live in a submarine? I'm not, because I do breathe oxygen, so that would be a little bit of a challenge.
It's a big yeah.
Big part of being human.
Big issue.
Maybe someday there'll be a gill implant or something.
See, I would probably be down for that. Maybe for
what?
like, dude, for like if I had money and they were like, we'll give you some gills
on the side of your head.
Yeah, dude, I'd go swimming in the ocean. I mean, I'd be scared, but they would be cool. It'd be super cool.
Right.
As far as the silly questions go, there is one that is quite important to both of us. How do you feel about pineapple on pizza?
Answer this one right.
It's
Gary.
it's wonderful if you like it.
That is the cop-outist answer to that question. Fair, but
right? That's the right thing to say.
I think it could be good. So it's not how I would normally order my pizza.
Okay, all right.
But I think I would eat it, especially if I was particularly hungry.
True.
Yeah, right. You're not gonna. I mean,
I'm gonna say no.
That's my stance on it. Like
You said it was gross.
I would say I'm vehemently against pineapple on pizza. But if we were somewhere and somebody was like, "Hey, man, all we got is this really gross, nasty pineapple pizza," and I'm not gonna be like, "Well, I'm just not gonna eat tonight." Like, I'll eat the pineapple.
Okay, what you can do is just pick the pineapple off the top, and then.
Yeah, you could do that, but then you won't have anything left. There's always
There's
usually a ham on there.
Pineapple and sausage or pepperoni or something.
Gotta get some ham.
We
I don't order pizza with pineapple on it. So.
Okay. We've had very varied answers to that question. Austin and what was his name, Ben, who worked on Warframe, they both said yes, I think. And then Tom Salta, we interviewed a little while ago, and he was very upset at that question. It was a hard no.
Very, very upset. Cool. So
that's not one of those things that I would
look for,
search for, but it's not something that like I would look at and get like a sense of nausea.
Okay.
Or something like that, it'd just be like,
right.
Maybe
Yeah,
maybe I'm
yeah,
just
like when I
dramatic.
was working in the studio all day and I hadn't have lunch, it's like 5 o'clock, and there's someone brings a pizza out, and like I was really hungry, I'd probably just eat it, you know?
Bam.
Yeah,
Boom. It is still food, barely.
yeah, it's food. Like,
So anyway,
All right. All right, so we're gonna jump back into some music stuff now. So, do you have? Okay, wait. So, what's your relationship with music theory? And then you may have talked a little bit
you
about this
definitely
earlier.
brought with the 12 tone and
Yeah.
your use
So
of
I'm
triads.
gonna go ahead and guess that you really get deeps with the music theory when necessary.
well, I'm not like reading any theory books. I studied music theory, of course, and I understand all the concepts of music theory. And but it's not like I'm thinking about it when I'm writing. I guess the thing is that it's hard to know is like it's like when you're writing, okay, well, you learned how sentences are structured and how grammar works. So but are you thinking about that as you're writing? No, you're just writing.
Right.
You're typing away and you're writing a paragraph, and you're trying to communicate. And so I think that's the same thing with music theory. Is if you've studied music and you understand music theory, then you're not like thinking, "Well, I want to do this," or "Oh, I'm trying to." It's just like intuitively part of your process. You are familiar with it, and you're just using it just as you would use sort of the tools of grammar and structure and communication that you've learned, and it's just sort of part of your process because it's so imbibed. You've imbibed these theories and you understand them, and sometimes when you think about music theory, it's like it's breaking the rules
Right.
that cool, it's like, okay, let me break the rules, um,
One of the things that Dan would tell us a lot of the time. Ooh, jeez, I forgot about this part too. Would tell us a lot of the time was that you learn theory so that you can break the rules. You learn the rules so that you can break them, which is way more interesting than when I was learning it at first. It's like, these are the rules.
Yeah.
You can't do anything else.
You need to learn these rules.
Yeah.
well, literally this reminds me of something one of my professors said when I was at USC, because we were learning, and I had this professor named Jim Hopkins, and he taught this incredible counterpoint class, and we were studying Bach, and he would tell, and so there was all these rules of fugue, writing fugue. We were writing fugues, and so, and then he was, but then Bach, and they go, and here's a situation where Bach broke the rules, and so yeah, so usually you don't do this, but here's Bach. So I thought, like, if Bach broke the rules, what are these rules? Who makes these rules? These are still, it's almost like, you want it. You have these rules. They're helpful. They're useful, and then you want to break them occasionally because you have some idea that just intuitively suggests that you should do something different, and you just know it's going to work. So.
Yeah, then when, like you were saying, if someone as, I don't know, as revered as Bach breaks the rules, like, so then what's the, where's the line? And
yeah, the rules come from studying Bach, anyways.
Yeah, that too.
The rules come from studying Bach because there were no books on how to write fugue in Bach's day.
Right.
Something that father taught his son, or that maybe he went and studied somewhere, but there wasn't any. The rules came almost later upon analyzing what earlier composers did.
Right.
Yeah, these are the common themes we're hearing here.
Yeah, totally.
All right. I actually never really thought about that,
What about Bach breaking
just like,
rules?
Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, so we're making all this music and it just, is starting to turn into this genre, really. But no one's really.
Yeah, I mean, what's the rules of rock and roll?
Yeah, right?
That's why I feel like that's why there's so many subgenres anymore. Is like there's someone makes up an arbitrary set of rules and then someone breaks those rules and it's like, okay, so this is like that, but this one rule is broken.
So we
now
can't
it's
call
another
it that,
right.
right?
It's now it's another subgenre.
Mm-hmm.
Like how you were saying before. There's the I forgot the word, but the half spoken, half.
Sprech. There's two words that mean the same thing: Sprechstimme or Sprechgesang.
Sprechstimme is. is easier for me to pronounce. But I listen to a lot of, like, I guess what is qualified as like emo or like post-punk type music. So, you know, a lot of that is singing involved, but then there's ones that have like where it's basically just sing talking. So it's not, you know, it's breaking the rules. So it's technically not that. So I don't even know what to call it anymore.
It says Sprechgesang or
Yeah.
Sprechgesang. Hey, your emo Sprechstimme is cool.
I'm really into that. Much appreciated.
Emo Stimme.
I will be unstoppable with my new genre. What else you got?
So we kind of touched on this one maybe a little bit too, but maybe other than 12-tone serialism, are there any kind of like modes or musical scales that you, I guess, enjoy working in, maybe over others, or are you just kind of a major minor guy?
No. I mean, of course, I've used a lot of, serial tech, not serial, but aleatoric music. I've certainly incorporated that into Bioshock, but I mean, this you use the scale that, that works. You know, it could be a minor scale, it could be a major scale, it could be a diminished scale. You know, I find a diminished scale can be quite useful in writing, music. So I mean, the scale can be anything that works within the environment of what you're scoring and writing for. Some things you want it to be maybe beautiful, and so you're going to be sort of a major, minor kind of chords, triads, triadic music. And then other things are going to be much more complex and dense and chromatic, and so I think there's no, I don't have one answer for that. I mean, if you want to play, do you want to play some music? Because I sent you guys some music.
Yeah, listen to the tracks you sent me. I could pull those up if you like, or if you want to.
It makes sense to play them in this process, or would you rather just keep going with the
Let me pause real quick, and I'll pull up the emails. Oops, I didn't pause. There we go. I don't want to die. All right.
Let me scoot back.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. We're a little still getting used to our new setup in here. All right. So also don't want to see all my logins. Oh, that works as well. Email. Take me to my emails. There we go. And here are the tracks. Thanks for sending those over, by the way.
Sure.
Pull up that Dropbox. There we go. So, which one did you want to play?
I should play the ballet.
The ballet.
This is very tonal, very triadic, and sort of in the style of Vaughan Williams.
Okay. If it'll let me, come on.
You got to download it. Yeah.
I guess I have to download it. Okay. I will do that. It can't be that long, right? Haha, there we go. That was quick. Nice and easy. Do we have VLC on this computer? Am I going to have to use Windows Media Player?
Oh, yes.
Oh, no, we have VLC. Oh, thank God.
No. This is from Torn. So that music was to invoke memories of like a past, of actually you enter this room, the ballet's room, and you see, and he was an English ballet, and you see pictures of his family, and you see, very English, and you know, and so there was sort of invoke sort of the English countryside. But then, so then that was for that. But then play Big Sister on the Move. So this would be something very different from Bioshock 2.
I was gonna say this must be Bioshock 2.
Yeah.
Big Sister. It's very dissonant. I like it.
Yeah. So two very different pieces of music,
Very.
but both meant to reflect what was going on, in the games.
Well, it's funny because I very much remember the part in Bioshock 2 where that happens when you first meet the little sister or the big sister.
Big Sister, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very it's really cool how the track basically mimics what's happening in the game because every time the big sister is around, it's really tense. It's really hard to you get really afraid because she pops out like randomly at some points, and when you start it's doing the dissonance, but it's going up and up and up and up and up in tone or in pitch, and then when you start doing that like slide downwards, it's like when it kind of mimics her actions when she just like jumps down on you, and it's like it mimics the action so well. It's really cool. Of
course, I didn't write it knowing it would mimic the action because you don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because it's just but yeah, so the music is just written to fit whatever you're doing, whatever the game.
Right.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think that's some of my favorite stuff about music for games and film, especially. For a reason I'll explain in just a sec. But yeah, there's almost there's no ambiguity, I guess, in the intention of the music, right? Like I feel like certain pop songs or stuff like that, just as an easy example to throw out, like Pumped Up Kicks is a really happy, upbeat song until you really listen to the lyrics.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're like, oh my God. It's like, and you feel differently about the song when you're actively, I guess, listening to it. Where with film and TV, even hearing the music out of its context, like the first song that played, I kind of immediately, for whatever reason, started thinking about the first times I was playing Skyrim, but not the game, but like
The
where
feeling.
I was in life in
Yeah.
like 2011, right? So then you said like this is supposed to be like something that evokes like old memories, you know, and I'm just like it's crazy because it did, you know, and I had no visual cues to tell me like, oh, you should be feeling kind of nostalgic about this. And
Right.
just like the kind of Little Sisters music or the Big Sister music, it felt like something that was supposed to be very
Stressful.
tense and stressful,
Yes.
but it didn't feel sinister, if that makes sense. Like, it didn't feel like something horribly bad was going to happen, just something bad. I don't know if that kind of makes sense. And
It's threatening. It's
yeah,
threatening.
right?
Yeah.
It's not like saying she's the devil. She's just a threatening.
Yeah, she's threatening. She's not going to kill you.
Well.
Yeah, maybe not.
She will, actually.
She did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm actually, I've never really played any of the Bioshock games, so
This was my idea.
yeah. So yeah, it's just kind of one of those things that was really cool. Just kind of getting the context after and like kind of going through the emotions of like listening to it and like what was going on. Yeah, it I guess you could say it was very effective coming from someone who had like no experience with the game, and automatically those were the things.
Yeah, you're a good guinea pig for this one.
Yeah, right. Like really cool. I guess that's a long way of saying you do good work, man. You do good work. I like your stuff.
You're right.
Um,
I guess I wouldn't be. You wouldn't have invited me on if you hated my stuff.
That is a very good point.
right?
Although he hadn't played the game, this is
Yeah.
like I said, this one was my idea.
You are a Bioshock fan.
I love these games. I remember, I mean, like when the first one came out, I didn't have an Xbox, but my friend did, or a 360, and I went over to his house and he's like, "Have you heard of this game? Like, we gotta play this." And I was like, "I don't know what is this?" And then we played it, and I was just like, "What? This is insane!" Because it's all like Art Deco and ominous and underwater, and it was just so different and cool.
Yeah, but it was really a treat to be able to score that. I mean, but when you're working on it, you don't know that it's going to be some kind of how successful it's going to be.
Right.
It just,
It's 18.
You just don't know. And I thought it was cool, but it could have just been a cool, quirky out there game that came and went, like a lot of things
Right.
do. But that one did make a big impression.
Yeah.
And so
I am sad that Irrational is no longer a thing.
yeah, well, he has a ghost story. But that's the thing is with game development companies that you have to be. I think that you need to understand that if there's going to be a long cycle of development because you want to think about it, get somebody, you can't keep like 100 people sort of like sitting
staff,
around
yeah.
on staff because it costs a fortune. It costs millions of dollars, and it's like it's not feasible. Just like when you make a film. When you're done, everyone goes home and looks for their next job. And the TV series are different because there's multiple shows, so you're always cranking. But film is like you build up a production team, they make the film, and then
You disband.
people in production they leave first, and then post production gets started, editors and composers and sound effects. And then it's sort of like a wave that goes through with different people doing different part of the process. And some people stay throughout the whole thing, like producer or director.
Right.
Other people are just there for their specific, and then that team gets broken up, and so that's kind of in a way that's sort of a natural thing. Some game companies are able, like Monolith.
Right.
They maintain that studio with I think quite a number of people. And
Like that. Yeah. It's funny too because like we get so attached to the name. Like I was really sad when Visceral Games stopped being a thing because I love the Dead Space games. I'm also was the one who pushed for us to interview Jason Graves next week. But like the creative minds are still out there. It's not like they stopped doing it. It's just a different name.
line them up against the wall and shoot them or anything.
God, I hope not.
You don't get to
Shot
propose
the
anymore.
That would be
We're gonna have to shoot you all.
Right? Hands up, amigo.
that'd be way more ominous.
Yeah. What happened?
Well, since we're on the subject of ominous,
Uh-oh.
let's get an ominous question going here. Sort of ominous. I guess for music lovers. If for some reason the entirety of 20th century music was about to be destroyed, and you could save only the music from one era, what era would you choose?
Damn.
That's tough. That's horrible.
Was this also Adam's question?
Yes.
I love the music of the 20th century, and I think the music from the period from like maybe 1910 to 1940 something,
Okay.
was the coolest in some respects because you had Schoenberg, you had Bartok, you had Prokofiev, you had Stravinsky, all producing some of their most important music. So that was a really interesting sort of era. I don't know if that's the question. Of course, it's kind of a
Head scratcher.
It's one you're supposed
what
to
does that mean? Exactly. But I think that part of that century was really interesting. A lot of fabulous work was done, and that certainly for me is still a tremendous influence. I just listened to Prokofiev last night. His music is so incredible. I was listening to his score for Alexander Nevsky. I don't know if you know that music, but it's quite a remarkable film score, actually. And just Bartok is one of my favorite composers, and Shostakovich, amazing composer. So all that music from that era. Of course, Shostakovich is more like 40s and 50s. I guess in the 30s. So in any event, that I guess I don't know if that answers the question.
I think
good.
so.
That's a good answer. Kind of moving on, we're gonna make you hopefully try to get you to give a less diplomatic answer than the pineapple the pineapple answer here. If you could pick, I guess, any one of the Bioshock games that you composed for, all of them, which one's your favorite? Which one was the most fun to work on? And I guess for what?
I think the original Bioshock.
Okay.
Even though I will have to say, I think my score for Bioshock 2 may be one of the best of the three scores. It's the least well known, lauded of the three, But I think I really like the music on that game. But I think Bioshock was just such an interesting, creative. No one says. I remember Emily telling me, says, your score shouldn't sound like any other film, TV, or game score. It has to be. And I was like, whoa,
that's a lot of pressure.
Oh man.
No pressure here. But I think it kind of accomplished that. It has its own unique language. But the thing is, you can only do that if you have a unique game. You can't, take Super Mario Brothers and put Bioshock music on it. Ridiculous. It'd be horrible.
You could try it. It would go poorly. Yeah.
That might be an interesting mashup, as they say.
Yeah.
So it was like the music. They made something really, really amazingly creative, and then I got to write some really cool music, and they were very open to dramatically unique, really different way of scoring a game. I think at that time it was kind of a unique sounding video game score for sure. So that one has a special place in my heart, because of it really. It allowed me to do, work that like I'd never quite been asked to do before, and I got the opportunity to do some really cool things that then people really appreciated,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny you should mention that about the your difference, the difference in your work on Bioshock 1 and 2, because I feel like that really mimics the games themselves. Because I remember when Bioshock 1 came out, everyone's like, oh, it's revolutionary, it's brand new, this whole world building is incredible. All the very accurate praise that was made for that game. And then when Bioshock 2 came out, they were like, yeah, it's fun, but it's kind of just more Bioshock. It's definitely better than Bioshock 1 gameplay, but it's just not as revolutionary.
Right.
And then Infinite came out, and everyone's like, brains exploded because it was entirely different again.
Well, was the second Star Wars revolutionary? I mean.
Hey, Empire is people's favorite. I don't know.
Well, but it was not. I mean, they sort of had set the stage with the original.
Right.
so it was a it was just sort of playing on all the things, all the characters and concepts and empires and all that had been established in the original. So I think but definitely, Bioshock was just such a unique outlier of games that it really did have that kind of impact because it really kind of took people by surprise. I remember there's a article in the New York Times that said now our game's now art, and they referenced Bioshock, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. Be associated with the
Be a
game.
part of that, yeah.
Part of that, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and like Bioshock, I feel like I think 2007, 2008, something like that. I think. And it was really, at least to my memory, it was one of the first-person shooters that had like any story that was of substance. Yeah.
Although Ken Levine, I'm Jewish and Ken is Jewish. Ken, there's a holiday called Yom Kippur,
yeah.
which where you have to atone for all your sins. So a year ago, Yom Kippur, he came out and says, I want to atone for the ending of Bioshock.
What then? He was so good.
Well, I'm talking about, when just the Atlas thing, he felt that was kind of a cheat, just the killing Atlas. That was kind of like, he felt like it could have been greater than just coming up against Atlas and blasting away.
I guess, but it was so, when it was revealed to you that Atlas was Frank Fontaine, it's just like...
Oh, yeah, but that was earlier. But I'm just talking, he was just talking about that like the last big...
The last fight.
Boss battle. He felt like that was a underwhelming ending to the game.
I see. Okay. Well, all right, that's fair, I suppose.
Cool. So I guess this is like perfect segue now. So... Did you find it gets easier, I guess, just in general, working on sequels to games when you've already worked on the first iteration? And then I guess...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you've established a style and, it's...
You can reuse themes if you really want.
Yeah, it's definitely easier.
Yeah.
And then in regards to Bioshock, were you given, I guess, more or less freedom? Were there more kind of notes, I guess, on the second or third go around for making these, or how did that kind
of... I say Bioshock 2 was super smooth because I had established a style that everyone had already really loved, and I knew how to do it, and they were just sort of really loving what I was doing. So there wasn't any questioning of it. It went very smoothly. Bioshock, the writing Bioshock Infinite was more of a challenge because that was really sort of trying to rethink the franchise and the music, and that took some time to really kind of successfully find a way to do it, and we did. And it was interesting because one of the things that was very cool about how the music was produced, it was produced with small string ensembles mostly. And because there was a big budget for it, and it turned out we weren't going to use an orchestra. I said to the music director, I said, look, Jim, what if I do? Because one of the things I realized is that Ken Levine is very passionate, and he loves really passionately performed music. So, like when I wrote the theme for Elizabeth, I had it performed by real live musicians, Mm-hmm. And so I realized, and he really responded positively to that. And I think part of it was that it was really passionately played by some really good players. So I said, what if I just record the music like once a month? I just have like a session every month with a bunch of string players, And we don't use all the music. It's okay. We're going to be way under budget because we're not. Yeah. Anyways, and at first he was a little reluctant because it was sort of like not done. I mean, not usually, but it turned out to be a really cool way to produce the music and to go in every few weeks to record again. And I probably had like maybe 15 or 20 sessions, to record the music over time. And then most of the music did get used. Every now and then there was a cue that didn't seem to fit anywhere.
Cool. So yeah, that's actually one of the you're getting good with the segues. That's like one of the next questions.
Yeah. Like how much content, how much
Yeah.
extra stuff was there that got cut that we didn't get to hear?
That does happen. I can't tell you specifically. There was one cue, because sometimes I write music that they don't ask for,
Okay.
but I'm just inspired to write something cool that I think is cool, like that Big Sister on the that was they didn't ask. Michael Kemper did not ask for that cue. I wrote it and I recorded it, and I just said and I said, I just think this is gonna be cool, and he loved it, and that's where he used it for the Big Sister sequences. So similarly, I wrote a cue. I think it's called, what the heck is it called? Like AD. What is it called? I think it's called AD. Hold on. My website's not working. There it is. Yeah, it's called AD. And I wrote it, and I was just and Jim liked it. He says, but I don't know where I'm going to use it. I don't really have a spot for it. And then that's too bad, because it's such a cool piece of music. And then really towards the end, he called me, really excited, going, I found a place for it. I found this perfect spot for that cue. And so it got incorporated. And then it's actually one of the cues that gets performed live by orchestras, and et cetera. So I was really happy that came along. But yeah, some stuff ends up on the cutting room floor, and that's true in film and TV. It's true everywhere. I mean, or you write things initially as ideas to like come up with the approach, and then they go, yeah, that's not quite it. And so you just, next, so you can't get too attached to something. You have to really just keep experimenting and trying and finding what it is that just all where the puzzle sort of all comes together. And then once you find it, the writing goes usually pretty quickly.
Right.
It's finding that, especially again when you're doing something that's very, very different and unique in a game like Bioshock Infinite or Bioshock, then you really are inventing the wheel, and for the wheel for that project, and you have, it's a challenge. But once you find the approach, then it goes quickly.
Well, yeah. So I guess, last one here. Anything that isn't under NDA that you're willing to talk about, new or otherwise?
Anything you can tell us that won't get you buried under a studio somewhere in Santa Monica?
The gaming industry is very secretive.
We have heard that.
I'll tell you a quick Bioshock story about that.
All right.
It's like Bioshock had been was public, and it was coming out pretty soon. And I was at some event, and I was taught where composers were, being interviewed, and we're talking about our music. And the guy says, "So what are you working on?" I said, "Well, I just finished a game called Bioshock that's coming out." And he had heard of it. He said, "Oh, wow, yeah, that sounds like a really cool game. Can you tell me?" And I sort of described the music, and I said it was very string oriented, and it's, I think, very unique and different, and some solo violin stuff, and it's really and I was like really I thought kind of like teasing the game, and I thought that's kind of a good ad or something. And so I got home and I called the people that I was working with, and I said, I watch this, it's online. And they came back and said, you have to take that down.
What did you do?
Why did you do
that? I was like really like, oh my God, you talked about the music, and I was like, so I called someone who I knew, and they pulled it down. Maybe a dozen people had watched it or something. It was it had just gone up for an hour or something. But I felt like that was really, that was not necessary. But in any event, I have discovered since then, I mean, that is a very secretive industry, and that they really more secret than film.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would have ever happened on a film. They would have been, oh, cool, you got some.
Yeah, you got some trailer stuff for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? We don't have to pay another guy to do it. Sweet.
So I don't have anything. I am starting a project that probably won't start until early next year. That is a new a new franchise. And not, I wouldn't call it a new franchise. You'll never know if it'll be a franchise or not, but it's a
new IP.
New IP, yes. I'm
Cool.
very excited to be working
Awesome. I actually had one more question of my own that was not on the list, but did you have, because I know that Bioshock was heavily influenced by System Shock 2. Was that part of your process at all? Did you have any, like, I guess, influence from the score to System Shock?
System Shock 2 had a pretty ambient score.
Yeah.
I don't think, I never played it, to be honest with you. And I wasn't asked to emulate it. One thing that was kind of interesting was in Bioshock, I was working with the audio director, Emily Ridgway. And so mostly it was just her and I, and we weren't getting much input from Ken. He seemed to be very satisfied, because I think his expectations from System Shock was that music was not so important. But at the end of he wrote me a really lovely email at the end saying, Garry, I have to say, I did not think music was so that important for video games, but I think your score changed my mind about that.
That's awesome.
I still have that email. He says you really changed my mind, and he says I listened to your music in my car. I love it. So he was great. But then when Bioshock Infinite came, he was very involved in approving everything. He was more sort of hands off, and which could be kind of cool. But then he was hands on. The thing is about Ken is like he's brilliant. He really is. He's really a genius, I think. And he really pushes the envelope and creates really brilliant stuff. So, that is part. I mean, just like, Bernard Herrmann wrote all these scores for Hitchcock, but Hitchcock made these amazing movies,
Right.
that Bernard Herrmann got to score,
Right.
So sometimes the composer is dependent upon the person or the creative team that makes something great for your creativity to find its place,
Yeah, totally. Real quick, little Easter egg here. It says in French, The Revenge of the Jedi, which was the original title of Return of the Jedi. So, alternate dimension coolness. Oh yeah,
he knows French.
I do. Okay, well, thank you so much for hanging out with us, Garry. We really appreciate you answering all our questions.
Thanks, man.
Pleasure. Thank you guys for inviting me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and if once the Metamorphosis comes out, we'd love to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I think that will be. It's not a huge score. It's only about 20 minutes of music, but it's really different and unique. And I would love to chat up with you guys about it.
Awesome.
Maybe get me and Nikolai on.
Yeah.
Nikolai Strinsky.
That would be great. Yeah.
That would be sick.
Yeah. So thanks to everyone for watching. Garry, if you want to let Bear, what's his last name?
Bear McCreary.
Bear McCreary know that we don't suck. We tried emailing him, and he did not get back to us, and we would really like to talk to him. But
I know Bear, and I'll put in a good word for you. Okay?
Much appreciated. All right. Well, we'll let you off the hook now. We really appreciate you coming by. Our students really appreciate it as well.
My pleasure.
Hope to hear from you soon.
Yeah, man.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.
Another cool guy.
Another cool one.
Another cool guy and the succession of cool guys.
The cool guy committee.
We are thick with cool guys at this place. Yeah, I mean, what else do we say? He was another nice dude. Really interesting. He went deep on music theory real fast, which was not what I expected. You just turned the camera. Mario doesn't want to be seen. Yeah, I don't know. We're doing Jason Graves next week. That sounds weird when I say it like that. We're going to be interviewing Jason Graves next week about
Graves. You guys don't want to miss that one. Let me tell you.
Stream live on the hub.
I've been fucking working out for days.
Trying to get my stamina up.
My
Anyway, this is awful.
2 hours.
We did a whole interview without like cussing or saying weird shit. No.
Now as soon as he's gone.
Fuck that. All right, y'all. Well, we really appreciate you guys watching through, and to all y'all watching the VOD in the future, follow us at these things down here, right here, We will see you next week with the Jason Graves interview. Check out all the stuff on the YouTubes, and we will see you next week. Peace out. Okay. All right.
I'm pointing at it.
I see you pointing.